No matter how great your wedding script is, it can be absolutely paralyzing. Your fear of making a mistake when you're officiating the ceremony and basically messing up the whole wedding. And why are you so worried about making a mistake? It's because you're a good and decent person. Officiating a wedding is not like some solo presentation where you get on stage and if you tank, it's all on you and you can just bear that on your shoulders. Officiating a wedding is all about the couple, and there's this sense that with all the flowers and grandmas and bow ties and drapery, this is a really momentous occasion, and any mistake you make gets thrown onto the couple. It reflects poorly on them and embarrasses them in front of all their guests, and that's way worse than messing up yourself all alone on a stage somewhere. And it's not just that. Add to that pressure the sense that what if somebody else makes a mistake? What do I do then? Well, then it reflects on me as the officiant, right? I got to say something, I'm left holding on the bag, and if I don't say the right thing or handle that mistake properly, then it reflects on the couple. It's like trickle-down mistakeonomics. What are you supposed to do? You know what? It's all way too much. How do you get out of bed on the morning of the wedding? I'm Mark Allen Grollo, a book-solid, full-time wedding officiant. Let me tell you, after years of officiating hundreds of weddings, I've developed a kind of three-part hack for myself that I want to share with you that safeguards against that feeling that the wedding officiant has to be absolutely perfect and the ceremony has to be absolutely flawless or else everything's going to be ruined. And yes, this comes after making my fair share of mistakes and learning from them. And that's what I want to share with you. Go into your next wedding ceremony with these three hacks at the ready, these three strategies in your pocket, and you will absolutely take the pressure off yourself. You'll be able to officiate a fun and relaxed ceremony, and everyone will thank you. Okay, so let's get right to it. Hack number one for conquering your fear of wedding ceremony mistakes is start by giving the wedding party a pep talk. Give the wedding party a pep talk. The most nerve-wracking part of the ceremony, maybe of the entire wedding day, is by far just the couple of minutes before the ceremony starts. Everyone who's going to be walking down the aisle is lined up at the back, behind the closed doors or around the corner, and the jitters are just at 100%. The nerve level is DEFCON 1, and everyone is wound up tight as a drum. What is everyone so worried about? They're worried about messing up, making a mistake, tripping, falling, missing a cue. There's a simple way to make sure that if anyone messes up during the ceremony, the actual wedding parties are the biggest cheerleader, the ones who are basically going to say with their eyes, with their body language, with their demeanor, with their chuckles, hey, it's all okay, we're in this together, nobody was scandalized by something that goes out of order. How do we achieve this? We achieve this with this pre-ceremony, right before we head down the aisle, pep talk. I never start a wedding ceremony without the pep talk. It's become one of the highlights of the day for the couple and for the bridesmaids and groomsmen. A lot of the time I'll get emails after a ceremony, not just commending me on a great ceremony, but also saying that pep talk was so helpful. It calmed our jitters, it galvanized us, made us feel like we're on a team. Thanks so much for doing that minutes before the ceremony when we were all so wound up. So essentially we're rallying the troops right before this big main event. We're basically William Wallace, only slightly less sticky.
But they'll never take our freedom!
Now he's shouting about dying and freedom and Scottish phrases. What do we say as wedding officiants to the wedding party before we head into the wedding ceremony? It only takes a minute. Here's exactly what I do and say. I go back there where everybody is waiting, and we're talking the couple, the parents, the bridesmaids, the groomsmen, the kids, the animals, anybody who is going to walk down the aisle. I say, could I just have your attention for just a quick moment before we get started here? Just a couple of things I want to say. I say, listen, I understand we're all nervous, we're all jittery, we're all pretty ratcheted up right now, and yes, you'll get a course of unanimous heads nodding and people saying, yeah, that's for sure. But then I'll say, and this is the important turn, I'll say, we have practiced, we have rehearsed, we have done everything in our control to make sure this goes as smoothly as possible, right? There's nothing more we can do. And again, yeah, everybody's on board with that. And then I'll say, but if something happens out there beyond our control, anything can happen out there. Something could fall over, somebody could fall over, somebody could miss a cue. There's usually a bit of chuckling around that because everyone's hoping it's not me. But I say, if something like that happens, it's not in our control, but the one thing we can control is how we respond to that. And so I'm asking you to be team bride, team groom here. If something does happen, don't be scandalized by it, don't be uptight by it, because basically the wedding guests in that room, whether it's 20 people or 200 people, you say, the wedding guests are looking to us. We are essentially the hosts of the wedding. They're looking to our behavior. So if something unexpected happens, a glass candle holder falls over and shatters in the aisle, if we get uptight, scandalized, and in our minds we think, there goes the ceremony, it's ruined, then that will translate to the guests. They'll feel that and they'll start to adopt that same emotion. But if we take it in stride, kick the glass aside, chuckle, whatever, just really take it calmly and well, and show that this is not a big deal, then the guests again are going to feel that too. And then I end with this. So let's be great hosts, because no matter what happens out there in the next half hour in the ceremony, this day is ultimately about getting these two married. And we want to have fun and we want to celebrate. That can start right now. So let's get out there. Let's be great hosts, because at the end of the day, no matter what happens, these two are going to be married and we're going to party. Are you with me? Are you ready? Let's do this. Are we together in this? Everybody cheers and shouts, and all the nerves kind of wash away. They dissolve, and everyone's ready to go in there and have a great time. William freaking Wallace, I kid you not. The great thing about this little pep talk is it takes the wedding parties from clenched jawed with anxiety to cheering with excitement. The better thing about it is that the couple agrees with absolutely everything you've said. You've cast this wonderful vision of relaxed and having fun. And the best thing about it, though, is now that if we mess up or somebody else messes up, nobody's going to have a cow. The couple's not going to have a cow. The bridal party, the groomsmen, the parents, because we are all in this together. We are all on the same team. All right, let's get right to hack number 2. Hack number 2 for conquering your fear of wedding ceremony mistakes is get the guests on your side. Get the guests on your side. Well, now with the wedding party all pumped and ready to come out, it's time for the wedding officiant to take the front and kick this thing off. And what we're going to do before we start the kind of processional uptight part of the ceremony is we're going to have a moment with the guests. It's kind of like at a concert, the main act has an opening band, or in stand-up comedy, the headliner has an opening act. Well, here in a wedding, the officiant is essentially opening for the couple and warming up the friends and family. And what you're really doing while you're doing that is getting all the guests on your side. There's some research in psychology that says that in the first 5 minutes, people take a thin slice, what they observe about you, and they kind of decide what they feel about you and how to act and how to behave. Well, you're going to take that 5 minutes in front of the guests, friends and family, and you're going to show them, guide them into how to behave in this wedding ceremony. And basically you want it to be fun and relaxed and very human as we do this wonderful thing for this couple who's in love. Remember, our aim here is to make the room a less terrifying place if somebody were to make a mistake, us included or somebody else. So we need to give the guests the right cues to make this room that kind of place. So let's say we kick off the ceremony by walking up there and saying, "Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the wedding of Greg and Susan. This is a momentous occasion. We're going to have a beautiful time. Please turn off your cell phones and let's begin." What did guests get from that? They didn't get that this is fun and relaxing, that's for sure. In fact, what they did get from that was tense. I feel tense, and now I'm even more tense. And basically the officiant is kind of acting like, "Yes, everyone, tremble before me, because this is the most momentous of occasions." That's not going to help us or them or anybody else. There's a simple way to loosen guests up so that if we make a mistake up there or somebody else misses their cue or something during the ceremony, they are very forgiving. And basically the way to do that, the way to achieve that, is to have a little bit of fun with the guests before the processional starts, before the ceremony starts. So here's how I do that. I walk up typically and I turn around and I say to everyone, good afternoon, everyone. And of course, a couple of people might say, good afternoon, because they don't know what to do. And then I have a little fun. I say, oh, come on, now I know the couple want you to be a lot more rowdy than that. Let's try that again. Good afternoon, everyone. And they cheer back immediately, good afternoon. And all that tension, that energy, that negative energy that was in the room gets converted into positive energy, and they're shouting back at you, and people are smiling. And then I follow up immediately with another question. I say, are you ready for an event years in the making? Susan and Greg are here today to finally get married. And again, everybody cheers because they're all happy to be there. And what we've done immediately is gotten everybody warm and enthusiastic and given them permission to be themselves. Then I follow up immediately by introducing myself and saying something very important. I say, oh, it's good to see you. My name is Mark. It's my thrill to officiate the ceremony today. We are going to have a lot of fun today. But before we get to that, I just have a few announcements to make. And so my remarks are about phones, turn off your phones, whether or not they can take photos. But did you see how I said we are going to have a lot of fun today? I'm basically putting it in their heads, the idea that, hey, guess what? The ceremony is going to be fun. We just showed you that we're going to have fun. And you're giving the guests those mental and physical behavioral cues that this is going to be a good time. So in the same way we had a little huddle before the ceremony with the wedding parties, the couple, everyone who's going to come in, now we're essentially having a little private huddle with the wedding guests. Sometimes the groom is out there with me when I do this, or the groomsman, but essentially we're having a moment before we start getting everybody on our side. So then we make the necessary announcements about phones and cameras, and once all that stuff is done, then I always wrap up this opening remarks section by saying, okay, with all that out of the way, are you ready? Should we get these two hits? You want to get to it? And again, everybody shouts, yeah, let's get to it. And then we begin. So now we've got the wedding parties on our side and the family. We've got the wedding guests on our side. And it's starting to feel like everyone is on the same team and wants the absolute best for each other. And it's a wonderful room instead of an uptight place where you can't make a mistake. Let's get to the third hack that will finally quell that little voice once and for all, that little voice in your head that's saying, you better not make a mistake or the whole thing is ruined. Hack number 3 is don't do nothing when a mistake happens. Officiate enough weddings and you'll see all sorts of things go quote-unquote wrong in the ceremony. I've seen a bride get to the back of the aisle in the processional and not be able to walk because her dress was too long in the front. I've seen candle holders fall over and shower glass all over into the aisle twice. I've seen the mother of the bride have a heat stroke. I've seen the mic melt down and hiss static twice. I have seen the wedding processional start to play backwards because the DJ messed something up. I've seen the best man drop the ring and then drop the other ring. I've seen a baby cry nonstop through the ceremony. I have seen a dad wipe out on his daughter's dress and fall into the seats. I have seen the bridesmaid's heels punch so many holes in the aisle runner that by the time the bride had her turn, the thing looked like a cheese grater. In each of those cases, I had to make a judgment call about what to say and do or not say and do, but the key in each case was this: do something. Sometimes it's best to signal to someone to take care of something. So in the case where the aisle runner was completely shot to ribbons by the time the bride was about to take her turn down the aisle, I looked over to the wedding planner and gave her a nod, and she knew exactly what to do. She sprang into action, removed the runner, and I said something like, well, there, that's better. And everyone kind of giggled, and the bride, way down at the other end of the aisle, gave me a very grateful smile that we allowed for that to happen. Other times, I just assured the person that it was okay, whatever was happening. So in the case where the bride was at the end of the aisle and she couldn't take another step because her dress was too long, I just said something like, take all the time you need, it's your day. And everyone chuckled, and she did too, and then some ladies sprang into action to lift it up the front for her and help her down the aisle. When the tall glass candle holder that was in the aisle tipped over at some point during the ceremony, somebody knocked it over, I don't know, but it was tall and it smashed and showered glass all down the aisle right in the middle of the ceremony. Of course, it made a big scene, and I just acknowledged it. I said, oh, that's exactly what we planned, because immediately following the ceremony, the couple will be planning the very sacred glass walking ritual. Of course, everyone laughed and the wedding planners swooped in with brooms to quickly sweep it up. They used that moment as their cue to get rid of it in a way that wasn't disturbing. I made a different call in each situation, but the important thing is, and I'll stress this again, don't do nothing. When something unexpected happens, you got to do something, and that's either going to be one of three things. One, it's going to either be a signal for support. Two, it's going to be to assure the person that whatever is happening, it's okay. Or three, it's going to be to make a humorous comment to take the tension out of the situation. So how do we know what to do when? Is there some kind of rubric that we can consult so we know what's the best thing to do in whatever situation? Well, it might not be that cut and dried, but there are some helpful guidelines. So first of all, if it's a logistical issue or problem or something that went awry, if there is a planner or somebody acting like a planner, you're going to want to give them a nod or gesture to that thing, make eye contact with them, and essentially give them permission to take care of the problem. That's typically all they need. They just don't want to disturb or interrupt. But when you give them permission to do so with a verbal cue, eye contact, a gesture, they usually spring right into action and take care of it so that whatever's going on in the ceremony can continue to happen and they don't feel like they're intruding or ruining what's happening up there. So with regards to actually making a comment, here's a good general rule. If making a comment is going to make somebody feel worse about what happened, don't make a comment. But on the other hand, if not making a comment is going to really make the person feel extra embarrassed about the thing that happened, and a comment will actually help mitigate that, then it's a good time to say something. And here's the good news. Because of that work we did in the pep talk before the ceremony with the wedding party at the back in private, everyone is going to be a little bit more relaxed and a little bit more affable when something does happen. So that goes a long way to making them feel better if they do make a mistake. Sometimes the proper, well-timed comment from the wedding officiant can give everyone the permission they need in the moment to laugh in an otherwise super uncomfortable situation. One neuroscientist describes laughter as, quote, a signal to ourselves and others that what may appear dangerous or threatening actually isn't. I can't think of a more apropos description of what's going on in a wedding ceremony and our role as wedding officiants in that we may need to signal to all the guests, everyone in the room, that what may appear dangerous or threatening actually isn't. You don't have to be a comic, but simply calling out what happened when it happens in the ceremony might be the release valve that everyone needs. So you might want to have some quips at the ready for some things that frequently happen in wedding ceremonies that are unexpected. So, for example, for a baby incessantly crying and to the point where it's raising eyebrows and people are looking over, you might want to say something like, "Isn't it lovely when people cry at weddings?" For a groomsman dropping the ring or doing something that they've caught themselves and they seem to acknowledge that they've messed up, you can say something like, "Perfect, Josh, just like we practiced. You're doing great." That typically gets a good release laugh. For somebody tripping and awkwardly stepping this way and that, you could say something like, "Save the dancing for the reception, Cindy. Just another couple of hours to wait. We'll get there." If something falls over or breaks, you can say something like, "We spared no expense for that effect. I'm glad we pulled it off." So maybe you don't find those all that funny. Maybe you think you could improve on them. That's excellent. Just jog your mind for some of those unexpected events so that not only are you not terrified that something unexpected might happen in the ceremony, but you're also kind of looking forward to it so you can trot out those lines that you've prepared for. So we're just about done here, but maybe you're thinking, "Sure, Mark, that's great, but all your examples are when other people mess up. What happens when I mess up? What then?" Well, I got good news for you, because if you mess up, it's even a lesser deal. You can just say something straightforward like, "Well, I seem to be having trouble speaking today." Or you could say something generically funny or like, "Well, this is awkward, or you can just make a funny quip about the thing you actually said, the weird thing that came out of your mouth. If you mess up the bride's name, you could say something like, who am I? Where am I again? Something like that, and you'll bring levity to the situation. Essentially, you deal with your own mistakes the same way you deal with any other mistakes. Hope you're getting it by now. Don't ignore it. Don't pretend it didn't happen. Name it, have a chuckle, and move on as quickly as you can. Ultimately, observing and making mistakes along the way is key to becoming a better wedding officiant. There's nothing to fear about that process. Making a mistake is nothing to be terrified about, especially when you have prepared such a friendly room, the guests, the wedding party, the couple, and everyone's on the same team because of the atmosphere you have created. There you go. I hope this video was helpful. Like the video if it was. Leave a comment down below. I always read and reply to your wonderful comments. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to this channel so you never miss a video about how to officiate a wedding. See you in the next one.